Hi guys, welcome to my study compass. In this video, I'll be walking you through the past paper, Math P4, Variant 1, October-November 2018. Let's get started. Marianne sells photos. The selling price of each photo is $6. The selling price for each photo is made up of two parts, printing cost and profit. For each photo, the ratio printing cost is to profit equals 5:3. Calculate the profit she makes on each photo. If the ratio of the printing cost to the profit is 5:3, then the ratio for the selling price is 5 plus 3, which is 8. We've been given the selling price as $6 and we want to find the profit, which we are calling Y. When we cross multiply and make Y the subject, this is what we have. When we type this into the calculator, we get $2.25. Calculate her profit as a percentage of the selling price. When setting up the percentage equation, the value after the of, which in this case is the selling price, would be the denominator. So we have the profit, which is $2.25 divided by the selling price, which is $6 times 100%. When we type this into the calculator, we get 37.5%. Calculate the selling price of a photo in euros when the exchange rate is €1 equals $1.091. First, we set up the conversion ratio. When we cross multiply and make x the subject, this is what we have, which is equal to 5.50 euros rounded to 2 decimal places. Marianne sells two sizes of photo. These photos are mathematically similar rectangles. The smaller photo has length 15 centimeters and width 12 centimeters. The larger photo has area 352.8 centimeters squared. Calculate the length of the larger photo. For similar shapes, we know that the ratio of their areas should be equal to the square of the ratio of their corresponding sides. In this case, we are using the lengths of the two rectangles. When we make the length of the larger photo the subject, this is what we have. LS is 15 centimeters. AL is 352.8 centimeters squared and AS is 180 centimeters squared. When we type this into the calculator, we get 21 centimeters. In a sale, Marianne buys a new camera for $483. This is a reduction of 8% on the original price. Calculate the original price of the camera. Since the sale price is an 8% reduction on the original price, we subtract 8% from 100%, which gives us 92%. So we have 92% of the original price equals $483. When we make the original price the subject of the equation, this is what we have, which is equal to $525. Describe fully the single transformation that maps flag A onto flag B. When we look at flags A and B, we can tell straight away that this is a translation because both flags have exactly the same size and orientation. The only difference is that they are located on different parts of the grid. So now all we need to do is find the translation vector. From the illustration, we can tell that the translation vector is 5, 8. And so the full description for the transformation will be translation by the vector 5, 8. Describe fully the single transformation that maps flag A onto flag C. When we look at both flags A and C, we can tell straight away that this is an enlargement by a scale factor of half because each of the sides of the image, which is flag C, is half the corresponding sides of flag A. This is a positive scale factor because flag C has the same orientation as flag A. From here, all we need to do now is to find the center of enlargement. We can get this by connecting at least two corresponding points on both flags. The intersection point of the lines is the center of enlargement. In this case, we get the center to be 0, -7, and so the full description for the transformation will be enlargement by a scale factor of half about the center 0, -7. Describe fully the single transformation that maps flag A onto flag D. When we look at flags A and D, we can tell straight away that this is a rotation 90 degrees in the anti-clockwise direction. So now we need to identify the center of rotation. For a 90-degree rotation, the way to determine the center of rotation is this. We draw a line to connect at least two corresponding points on both flags. Then we need to draw the perpendicular bisectors of these lines. The intersection point of the bisectors is the center of rotation. In this case, this point is the origin, which has coordinates 0, 0. And so the full description for the transformation will be rotation 90 degrees anti-clockwise about the origin. Draw the reflection of flag A in the line y equals -1. So first, we draw the line of reflection, which is y equals -1. Then from here, we need to reflect the vertices of flag A in the line y equals -1. So for point A on flag A, since we move 2 units upwards to touch the line of reflection, we also need to move 2 units upwards from the line of reflection to pin the new position of point A. We need to repeat the same process for the remaining vertices on the flag as well. When we are done, we are able to map out the reflected image of flag A. The table shows some values of y equals x cubed minus 3x squared plus x. Complete the table. When we plug in x equals 0 into the equation, we get y equals 0. For x equals 2, we get y equals -2. And for x equals 2.75, we get y equals 0.9. On the grid, draw the graph of y equals x cubed minus 3x squared plus x. For x is greater than and equal to -0.75 and less than and equal to 2.75. So on the grid, we plot all the points in the table and connect the points with a smooth line. Use your graph to complete the inequalities in x for which y is greater than -1. First, we draw the line y equals -1 on the grid. We see that for y is greater than -1, we have x is greater than -0.4 and less than 1. Then we have x is greater than 2.42. The equation x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 0 can be solved by drawing a straight line on the grid. Write down the equation of this line. First, we need to rewrite the given equation to leave the function of the curve x cubed minus 3x squared plus x on one side of the equation. To do this, we can rewrite 2x as x plus x. Now, we leave x cubed minus 3x squared plus x on one side of the equation and move the other terms to the other side of the equation. This means the line we need to draw on the grid is y equals -x plus 1. On the grid, draw this line and use it to solve the equation x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 0. On the grid, we've drawn the line y equals negative x plus 1. The x-coordinate of the intersection point of the line and the curve is the solution to the equation, and that is 2.32. By drawing a suitable tangent, find an estimate for the gradient of the graph of y equals x cubed minus 3x squared plus x at x equals negative 0.25. On the grid, we've drawn the tangent to the graph at x equals negative 0.25. Now we pick 2 points on this line that would help us estimate the gradient. Here is the gradient formula. So we plug in the 2 sets of coordinates we picked on the tangent into the formula. When we type this into the calculator, we get the gradient to be 3. A school nurse records the height, age centimeters of each of 180 children. The table shows the information. Calculate an estimate of the mean. Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. The mean is equal to sigma f of x, which represents the total sum of the heights of all the children, divided by sigma f, which is the total number of children. Before getting sigma f of x, we need to get the midpoint height for each of the given height intervals. So for the first interval, the midpoint height is 60 plus 70 centimeters divided by 2, which is 65 centimeters. Then we have 70 plus 90 divided by 2, which is 80. 90 plus 100 divided by 2, which is 95. 100 plus 110 divided by 2, which is 105. 110 plus 115 divided by 2, which is 112.5. 115 plus 125 divided by 2, which is 120. So for sigma f of x, we have 65 times 8 plus 80 times 26 plus 95 times 35 plus 105 times 67 plus 112.5 times 28 plus 120 times 16 centimeters divided by the number of children, which is 180. When we type this into the calculator, we get 100.2 centimeters rounded to 1 decimal place. In a histogram showing the information, the height of the bar for the interval age is greater than 60 and less than and equal to 70 is 0.4 centimeters. Calculate the height of the bar for each of the following intervals. The frequency density gives us the height of intervals on a histogram. For the interval age is greater than 60 and less than and equal to 70, the frequency density is equal to the frequency, which has been given as 8, divided by the interval width, which is 70 minus 60. This gives us 0.8. Since the height of the interval drawn on the histogram is 0.4 centimeters, then it means 0.8 times a certain scale factor, which we are calling k, should be equal to 0.4 centimeters. When we divide both sides by 0.8, we get k equals 0.5. So to get the height of the rest of the intervals, we multiply their frequency density by 0.5. For the interval age is greater than 115 and less than and equal to 125, its height will be 0.5 times 16 over 125 minus 115, which is equal to 0.8 centimeters. Then for the interval age is greater than 110 and less than and equal to 115, its height will be 0.5 times 28 over 115 minus 110, which is equal to 2.8 centimeters. Then finally, for the interval h is greater than 70 and less than and equal to 90, its height will be 0.5 times 26 over 90 minus 70, which is equal to 0.65 centimeters. Complete the cumulative frequency table below. For h is less than and equal to 70, the cumulative frequency is 8. For h is less than and equal to 90, the cumulative frequency is 8 plus 26, which is 34. For h is less than and equal to 100, the cumulative frequency is 34 plus 35, which is 69. For h is less than and equal to 110, the cumulative frequency is 69 plus 67, which is 136. For h is less than and equal to 115, the cumulative frequency is 136 plus 28, which is 164. On the grid opposite, draw a cumulative frequency diagram. So on the grid, we plot all the points in the cumulative frequency table, then we connect the points with a smooth line. Use your cumulative frequency diagram to find an estimate of the interquartile range. The interquartile range is equal to the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. To get the upper quartile, we map 3/4 of 180, which is 135 on the cumulative frequency diagram. This gives us 110. For the lower quartile, we map 1/4 of 180, which is 45 on the cumulative frequency diagram. This gives us 94. So now, the interquartile range is 110 minus 94, which is equal to 16. Find an estimate of the 70th percentile. To get the 70th percentile, we map 70% of 180, which is 126, on the cumulative frequency diagram. This gives us 109. Find an estimate of the number of children with height greater than 106 centimeters. When we map 106 centimeters on the cumulative frequency diagram, we get 108, which represents the number of children with a height of 106 centimeters or less. So to get the number of children with a height greater than 106 centimeters, that will be equal to the total number of children, which is 180 minus 108, which is equal to 72. The diagram shows a prism with length 18 centimeters and volume 253.8 centimeters cubed. The cross-section of the prism is a right-angled triangle with base 6 centimeters and height 8 centimeters. Show that the value of h is 4.7. We've been given the volume and length of the prism. We know that the volume of a prism is equal to its cross-sectional area times its length. In this case, the cross-sectional area of the prism is in the shape of a triangle, and we know the area of a triangle is half base times height. We want to find the height h. So when we make h the subject, this is what we have. The volume V of the prism is 253.8. B is 6 and L is 18. When we type this into the calculator, we get 4.7 centimeters. Calculate the value of x. To get the value of x, we can apply SOHCAHTOA. This gives us tan x equals 4.7 centimeters divided by 6 centimeters. When we make x the subject, this is what we have. When we type this into the calculator, we get 38.1 degrees rounded to 1 decimal place. Calculate the total surface area of the prism. Before we can get the total surface area of the prism, we first need to find y, which is the length of one of the edges of the prism. To get y, we can apply the Pythagoras theorem to the right-angled triangle. This gives us y squared equals 4.7 squared plus 6 squared. To make y the subject, we take square root of both sides of the equation. This gives us y equals 7.62. So now, the total surface area of the prism is equal to the surface area of the two right-angled triangles, which is 2 times half of 6 times 4.7 centimeters squared, plus the surface area of the other three rectangles, which is 18 times 4.7 plus 6 times 18 plus 7.62 times 18 centimeters squared. When we type this into the calculator, we get 358 centimeters squared rounded to 3 significant figures. The Venn diagram above shows information about the number of students who study music, drama, and geography. How many students study music? The number of students who study music is equal to 5 plus 3 plus 2 plus 4, which is equal to 14. How many students study exactly 2 subjects? The number of students who study exactly 2 subjects is equal to 3 plus 4 plus 9, which is equal to 16. 2 students are chosen at random from those who study drama. Calculate the probability that they both also study music. The probability that the first student picked from the drama group also studies music is equal to the number of students who study drama and music, which is 5, divided by the number of students who study drama, which is 22. Remember, we are picking the first student and a second student. The end becomes times. After the first student is picked, the pool reduces by 1, and so the probability that the second student from the drama group also studies music is 4/21. When we type this into the calculator, we get 10/231. In the Venn diagram above, shade M intersection D complement. In other words, we are to shade the region for the students who study music but do not study drama. This region has been shaded on the Venn diagram. Complete the Venn diagram below using this information. First, let's list out the elements in the universal set and the elements in set A. We are told that 4 belongs to the region A intersection B, and we are also told that the number of elements in A intersection B is 1. This means 4 is the only element in the region A intersection B. We've also been told that the elements outside A union B are 1, 7, and 9. So we put these elements outside sets A and B. Looking at the elements in set A, we see that if 4 is common to sets A and B, then the remaining elements in set A are 2, 6, 8, and 10. Then looking at the elements in the universal set, the remaining elements 3 and 5 will go under set B. Use your Venn diagram to complete the statement B equals blank. In other words, we are to list the elements in set B. These are 3, 4, and 5. Calculate the area of triangle PQR. On the diagram, We've been given the lengths of two sides of the triangle and the angle between the two sides. So we are going to use this formula to get the area of the triangle. When we plug in the values of the sides and the angle into the formula, this is what we have. When we type this into the calculator, we get 42.2 centimeters squared rounded to 3 significant figures. In the diagram, AB equals 18 centimeters, BC equals 21.3 centimeters, and BD equals 11.6 centimeters. Angle BDC equals 123.5 degrees, and angle ABC is a right angle. Calculate angle BCD. To get angle BCD, we apply the sine rule to triangle BCD. This gives us sine BCD divided by 11.6 centimeters equals sine 123.5 degrees divided by 21.3 centimeters. When we make angle BCD the subject, this is what we have. When we type this into the calculator, we get 27.0 degrees rounded to 1 decimal place. Calculate AD. To get AD, we apply the cosine rule to triangle ABD. We've been given AB as 18 centimeters and BD as 11.6 centimeters, but we've not been given angle ABD. We found angle BCD in the previous question as 27.0 degrees. The sum of the angles in triangle BCD should add up to 180 degrees. So when we subtract the sum of 27.0 degrees and 123.5 degrees from 180 degrees, we get angle CBD to be 29.5 degrees. Angle CBA is 90 degrees. So to get angle ABD, we subtract 29.5 degrees from 90 degrees, which gives us 60.5 degrees. When we type this into the calculator, we get 15.9 centimeters rounded to 3 significant figures. Write down the coordinates of A. When we map A onto the x-axis, we get 5. And when we map it onto the y-axis, we get 6. Find the equation of line L in the form y equals mx plus c. All we need to do is find the values of m and c and plug in these values into the equation y equals mx plus c. To get m, we need to pick 2 points on line L. By applying the gradient formula, we get -1 minus 3 divided by 5 minus 0, which is equal to -4/5. To get the value of c, we pick the value on the y-axis through which line L passes, which is 3. So we have y equals -4/5x plus 3. Write down the equation of the line parallel to line L that passes through point B. Parallel lines have the same slope, so the line would have the same slope as line L, which is -4/5. Point B is on the y-axis, so since the line passes through point B, then C is -2. So we have y equals -4/5x minus 2. C is the point 8, 14. Write down the equation of the line perpendicular to line L that passes through the point C. Since the line is perpendicular to line L, then the product of their gradients must be equal to -1. This gives us the gradient of the line as 5/4. To get the value of C, we plug in the value of M and the coordinates of point C into the equation. This gives us C equals 4. So we have y equals 5 over 4x plus 4. Calculate the length of AC. We already know the coordinates of points A and C. So to get the length of AC, we apply the length or distance formula. This gives us AC equals square root of 14 minus 6 squared plus 8 minus 5 squared. When we type this into the calculator, we get 8.54 rounded to 3 significant figures. Find the coordinates of the midpoint of BC. We already know the coordinates of points B and C. So to get the midpoint of BC, we apply the midpoint formula. So for the x-coordinate of the midpoint, we have 0 plus 8 over 2, which is equal to 4. And for the y-coordinate, we have negative 2 plus 14 over 2, which is 6. Paulo and Jim each buy sacks of rice but from different shops. Paulo pays $72 for sacks costing M dollars each. Jim pays $72 for sacks costing M plus $0.9 each. Find an expression in terms of M for the number of sacks Paulo buys. The number of sacks Paulo buys is equal to the total amount he pays for the sacks, which is $72, divided by the unit cost of a sack, which is M dollars. Find an expression in terms of M for the number of sacks Jim buys. The number of sacks Jim buys is equal to the amount he pays for the sacks, which is $72, divided by the unit cost of a sack, which is M plus $0.9. Paulo buys 4 more sacks than Jim. Write down an equation in terms of M and show that it simplifies to 10m squared plus 9m minus 162 equals 0. If Paulo buys 4 more sacks than Jim, then it simply means the number of sacks Paulo buys is equal to the number of sacks Jim buys plus 4. We know the number of sacks Paulo buys is 72 over M, and the number of sacks Jim buys is 72 over M plus 0.9. When we multiply through the equation by M times M plus 0.9, this is what we have. When we expand the brackets, 72 times M is 72M. 72 times 0.9 is 64.8. 4m times m is 4m squared. 4m times 0.9 is 3.6m. When we move all the terms to one side of the equation and group like terms, this is what we have. When we convert the decimals to fractions, this is what we have. When we multiply through the equation by 10, we have 40m squared plus 36m minus 648 equals 0. The terms have a common factor of 4. So when we divide through by 4, we have 10m squared plus 9m minus 162 equals 0. Solve 10m squared plus 9m minus 162 equals 0. We can solve this equation using the quadratic formula. When we apply the quadratic formula to this equation, this is what we have. The numbers under the square root, 9 squared minus 4 times 10 times negative 162 gives us 6,561. And for the denominator, 2 times 10 is 20. For the first possible value of m, we have 3.6. And for the second possible value of m, we have negative 4.5. Find the number of sacks of rice that Paulo buys. In part AI, we found that Paulo buys 72 over m sacks of rice. In part CI, we found two possible values of m. The number of sacks Paulo buys cannot be negative, so we use the positive value of m, which is 3.6. 72 over 3.6 is equal to 20. The diagram shows a circle center O. The straight line ABC is a tangent to the circle at B. OB is 8 centimeters, AB is 15 centimeters, and BC is 22.4 centimeters. AO crosses the circle at X, and OC crosses the circle at Y. Calculate angle XOY. Angle XOY is equal to angle XOB plus angle BOY. To get angles XOB and BOY, we apply SOHCAHTOA to triangles AOB and BOC respectively. So we get angle XOB to be tan inverse of 15 over 8. And we get angle BOY to be tan inverse of 22.4 over 8. When we type this into the calculator, we get 132.3 degrees rounded to 1 decimal place. Calculate the length of the arc XBY. In this case, we need to apply the arc length formula, which is theta over 360 degrees times 2 pi r, where theta in this case is 132.3 degrees and r is 8 centimeters. When we type this into the calculator, we get 18.5 centimeters rounded to 3 significant figures. Calculate the total area of the two shaded regions. The area of the shaded region is equal to the area of AXB plus the area of BYC. To get the area of AXB, we subtract the area of the sector BOX, which is tan inverse of 15 over 8 divided by 360 degrees times pi 8 squared, from the area of triangle BOA, which is half of 15 times 18. This gives us 25.4 centimeters squared rounded to 3 significant figures. To get the area of BYC, we subtract the area of sector BOY, which is tan inverse of 22.4 over 8 divided by 360 degrees times pi 8 squared, from the area of triangle BOC, which is half of 22.4 times 8. This gives us 50.3 centimeters squared rounded to 3 significant figures. Hence, the area of the shaded region is equal to 25.4 plus 50.3 centimeters squared, which is equal to 75.7 centimeters squared. Factorize 5m squared minus 20p raised to the power 4. The terms have a common factor of 5. When we factor out 5, we are left with m squared minus 4p raised to the power 4. M squared minus 4p raised to the power 4 is a difference of 2 squares, and we can rewrite it as m squared minus 2p squared all squared. By applying the factorization for the difference of 2 squares, we can rewrite m squared minus 2p squared all squared as m plus 2p squared times m minus 2p squared. So we have 5 times m plus 2p squared times m minus 2p squared. Make P the subject of the formula A equals P plus PRT over 100. When we multiply through the equation by 100, we get 100A equals 100P plus PRT. When we factor out P from 100P plus PRT, we are left with 100 plus RT. When we divide both sides by 100 plus RT, we have P equals 100A over 100 plus RT. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful. See you in the next video. Bye guys.